What's up, people? Joe Winko here, your favorite Hawaiian guy. Welcome to my next episode of Joe Winko Talk. So before I get to what I'm going to be talking about, I want to say first that it's kind of the 10-year anniversary of me being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. That's a condition that I'm living with right now that I'm going to have for the rest of my life. I did a whole episode of Joe Winko Talk about that. I'll have the link to it in the pinned comment. You guys can learn more about type 1 diabetes. But I did that episode of Joe Winko Talk a really long time ago. But it's not exactly the anniversary. I got it on February the 11th of 2008. I was supposed to do this episode of Joe Winko Talk earlier, but I didn't feel like it till now. But that's not what I'm going to be talking about in this episode of Joe Winko Talk. This is going to be a gloomy episode of Joe Winko Talk. It's not going to be exactly about myself, but it is going to be kind of personal too. This episode of Joe Winko Talk is going to be about tornado injuries. And as you all are probably aware of by now, I've been kind of obsessed with tornadoes lately. Because of my autism, that's what causes me to become fascinated and obsessed with certain stuff. Definitely a contributing factor, but mainly because I was supposed to die in a tornado last fall because a psychic told me that I was going to be killed by a tornado in North Carolina in October of 2017. The only reason why that didn't happen is because she ended up telling me, and that led to a whole bunch of things falling in place, and it didn't end up happening. That's the only reason why. But if she wouldn't have told me, I would have died in the tornado in North Carolina, and I wouldn't be here right now. I did an episode of Joe Winko Talk about that, and I'll have the link to that in the pinned comment as well, if you guys want to watch that. I never thought that tornadoes... I knew they were powerful, but I never thought in depth of how much destruction they actually do. Not all of them are extremely powerful, but they're all very dangerous, whether it's a really weak tornado or whether it's a really strong tornado. Now, tornadoes are rated by the Fujita scale, and it's named after, the Fujita scale is named after a scientist who studied tornadoes, and they're classified under EF0, EF1, EF2. That stands for Enhanced Fujita Scale. And I'm going to explain that right now, real quick. So an EF0 tornado has wind speeds of 65 to 85 miles per hour. They cause minor to no damage. It peels off some of the surface of some roofs, and some damage to gutters or sidings. Branches are broken off, shallow-rooted trees are pushed over, and next is an EF1 tornado, which has wind speeds of 86 to 110 miles per hour, which has moderate damage. The roofs are completely torn off, mobile homes are overturned or badly damaged, loss of exterior doors, and windows and other glass objects are broken. EF2 tornadoes have 110 to 135 mile per hour winds. They do considerable damage. Roofs are completely torn off. Foundations of homes are shifted. Foundations of frame homes are shifted. Mobile homes are completely destroyed, and large trees are snapped and uprooted. Light object missiles are generated. That means that the tornado will pick up light objects and throw them really far. And cars are lifted off the ground and are thrown off the road if they're moving. EF3 is the next level on the Fujita scale. They have wind speeds of 136 to 165 miles per hour, which do severe damage. Entire stories of well-constructed homes are destroyed. Severe damage to large buildings, such as shopping malls. Trains are overturned. Trees are debarked. Heavy metal cars are lifted off the ground and thrown, and structures with weak foundations are completely destroyed. Also, it tears off all the interior walls and the roof, so only the interior rooms of a house are usually left standing after an EF3 tornado comes in. An EF4 tornado has 166 miles per hour to 200 per mile 200 mile per hour winds. These cause extreme damage. These will tear up the whole entire house and will just leave piles of debris where the house stood and where the house used to be. They're also killer tornadoes too. But the most powerful tornadoes are EF5s, and these tornadoes have wind speeds of over 200 miles per hour and can go up to 300 miles per hour. That was the fastest recorded wind speed of a tornado on Earth. And EF5 tornadoes completely destroy an entire building, and the debris from the destroyed buildings are carried far away, and it just leaves the slab of where the house used to be with nothing on it. So that's basically the rating scale of the tornadoes and how powerful they all are. So I posted on Reddit about what the psychic told me about how I would die in a tornado. And everyone at first was telling me that to not believe the psychic and not to believe what she said, because she described in detail how I would be ripped apart and mutilated by this tornado, and I was typing in, do tornadoes really cause this? And everyone was telling me not to worry about it and that it wasn't going to happen. And that kind of got me a little bit upset because of my autism, because I was able to tell that the reason why they were telling me not to worry about it is because they thought that I was worried about it. But the thing was, I didn't care about dying in the tornado at all. My subconscious mind was scared of that, but my normal day thinking mind wasn't. Well, my mind definitely isn't normal, but my non-subconscious mind, my conscious mind, didn't care about getting killed by a tornado. And once I typed in that I didn't care about dying in the tornado at all, and that I wasn't going to be left out in the forest in North Carolina against my will, and that I was going there voluntarily because I was going to become homeless and I was going to end up dying anyway, that's when people started to tell me the real stuff that happens to people who are impacted by tornadoes. I listed all the injuries that the psychic said that I was going to endure and everything, and one person actually commented on the post and typed this in. She said, well, he or she said, those types of injuries can and do happen in direct hits from violent tornadoes. Victims are many times left unrecognizable due to dismemberment and having skin removed from sandblasting. Cattle meet the same fate. The standard measure of an EF5 tornado is the complete obliteration and removal of a well-built home, leaving an empty slab. The home is then reduced in granulated debris and strewn some distance from the foundation. So, yeah, as I said earlier when I was explaining the strength of tornadoes and how they're classified as. Another person on another website that I was posting about that on, when I described all the injuries the psychic told me I would get from the tornado, first, this person said, why on earth would you be out in the forest during a tornado anyway? But then next they said, if you were standing outside and a violent tornado was coming right for you and you were directly in its path, it's more likely that the tornado would just swallow you up and rip you to pieces and nothing would be found of your body at all because you would be torn apart by the high winds and all the particles flying around in the tornado. Because that actually did happen in Jarrell, Texas. I'm not sure if this is true or not, but I read online that a woman was killed by the Jarrell, Texas tornado, and the only thing they found of her was one of her hands that had a ring on it, and that's how they knew it was her. They never found any other pieces of her body because the tornado was so powerful that it tore her apart and all of her pieces were scattered everywhere. And it's really sad, and it's really eerie, and honestly kind of frightening and disturbing, honestly. Another thing I found was this one website while I was reading about tornadoes after the psychic told me I would die in one. It was on stormtrack.org. It was a post that this man posted on stormtrack.org. I have a picture of it right here, and I'm going to show it to you guys. Here it is. It was basically a web post. He said, Here are a few things gleaned from these sources, some I hadn't fully grasped previously myself. Tornado winds at the surface are densely packed with small particles that will sandblast off clothing and large patches of skin. Any wounds will be deeply penetrated with fungus and bacteria-rich soil, causing serious secondary infections. The wind gets into cavities, eye sockets, nose, mouth, ears, and can do severe internal damage and ghastly mutilations. In addition to debris impacts, many people are killed and injured from being violently tumbled along the ground or being airborne and falling. So, that all sounds very terrifying, really. And in my last episode of Joe Winko Talk, I was talking about the most deadliest tornadoes in world history. The deadliest one was the tornado that hit Bangladesh in April of 1989. It was so powerful that it left human skeletons in trees. It tore the flesh off of the victims and left them in the trees. The psychic told me that one of the injuries that I was going to suffer from, she said that the flesh on my right hand and my right forearm is going to be torn off by sand and sandblasted off. The flesh on my right hand and right forearm is going to be sandblasted off. They believe that the tornado of Bangladesh killed 1,300 people, but they believe that it could have been a lot more than that because most of the bodies were sucked up and ripped apart by the high winds, and most of the remains were thrown into the Indian Ocean and washed away because when a tornado picks stuff up, it has an updraft which sends stuff flying in the air. You don't just spin around, you actually fly up in the air if you're caught in a tornado. But you have all that debris ripping you apart into small pieces and everything. Way up in the air, the winds are really powerful. Like wind turbines, the reason why they always spin is because they're built really high and they're built really tall where they catch the high winds. The high winds can blow stuff really far away and a really far away distance. Like one example, there was one tornado that hit Tupelo, Mississippi a really long time ago. I'm not exactly sure when it happened, and I'm not sure how many people it killed, but I do know that it was a really strong and really powerful tornado because I was watching a documentary about it a long time ago, but I don't remember the name of the documentary. In the documentary, however, one thing I did remember, this tornado happened in Tupelo, Mississippi. They found debris from destroyed buildings in Tupelo, Mississippi, all the way in Nashville, Tennessee, after the tornado happened. Because it tore apart these buildings and it blew the debris up into the air really high, and the high winds blew it far away. And the tornado that hit Jarrell, Texas in 1997 was very, very powerful. It tore apart the whole entire neighborhood of the Double Creek Estates, and there's a whole documentary about it on YouTube. I'll have the link to it in the pinned comments. But I want to show you guys a part of that documentary that kind of confirms what I'm telling you guys right now. Let me bring it up real quick. Alright. Here it is. 3, 2, 1, now.
At the touchdown of the Jarrell tornado, it ripped up the ground. We had a cotton field at the touchdown point in which the cotton plant was not only pulled out of the ground, the soil itself was removed down to a depth of about 18 inches. Next, it swept across a wheat field. All of those shafts were then plucked out of the ground, flying through the air by the millions, and then impaling these cows that were in the field beyond that. This herd was vaulted into the air, picked up, whirled around, bounced along the ground many times, so that the animals had broken legs. In terms of the exposure to the wind itself, often the cattle lost their hair. They were skinned. Often what you would see is something like meat in a butcher's shop. In some cases, what you saw was mostly skeleton.
That's sad.
I think one of the most impressive images that I saw occurred at one of the early houses where it was only at an F2 strength. In this particular case, you were looking at a storm shelter in which a monolithic concrete slab weighing well over a ton, 4 to 5 inches of concrete, was lifted off of the ground. I looked for the top of the storm shelter. I asked the owner where it is. He said he could not find it. I went back a week later and asked again, did you ever find the top to your storm shelter? Apparently it caught into the wind and flew off like a frisbee, never to be found again. From there, I could then see how it was gaining in strength, such that by the time it reached Jarrell, it was at its greatest strength, its greatest breadth on the ground, almost a half-mile wide, and at that point, everything was removed from the ground.
It was clear that the Jarrell tornado, as it came to be known, was, even by Texas standards, unimaginable. Light objects were blown huge distances. A box of checks was later recovered 100 miles away. Other heavier objects, refrigerators, air conditioners, kitchen sinks, were completely destroyed. They were lifted into the vortex of the tornado and reduced to shrapnel in the swirling column of debris. The effect of such force on a human body is best left to the imagination. Most of those who were killed had to be identified from their dental records.
Okay, so that was from the Jarrell Texas documentary. It's really scary and really sad what happened to the cows, but also what happened to all the people. If a tornado is strong enough to tear apart a car and a house, and to do that to cows, cow's skin is much thicker than human skin. It can definitely rip apart a human body. And another thing was this other tornado that happened in 1996 in Oakfield, Wisconsin. I've heard in one news report that the wind was so powerful that it sent debris from Oakfield, Wisconsin, all the way on the other side of Lake Michigan, and pieces of homes and items from the homes in Oakfield, Wisconsin was found blown away in Michigan. So that's how strong it was, because it sucks up all the debris and the high winds carry it far away. So another dangerous thing that tornadoes can do is they also send debris flying through the air at 200 miles an hour. And anything flying through the air at 200 miles per hour can be extremely dangerous and extremely deadly. The tornado of Joplin, Missouri was so powerful that they found sheets of cardboard jammed inside concrete buildings. That's how strong it was. And let me show you another picture. This is from an F5 tornado that happened. It sent a block of wood through a concrete curb. Let me show that to you right now. Here it is. Okay, so that looks really, it's really creepy. As I said earlier, the tornado that hit Bangladesh in 1989 was so powerful that it left human skeletons jammed in trees, meaning that the tornado was so powerful that it tore the flesh off of the human skeletons and left them in trees. And Bangladesh is a really densely populated area. For a violent tornado to rip through something like that, it's really scary and really sad to think about what all those people gone through. The psychic also told me that when I got sucked inside this tornado, that I was going to be pelted and hit with debris the whole entire time. She said that my body was going to be split in half, and one of my arms were going to be completely torn off. My right arm was going to be completely torn off, and that my upper and my lower jaw would be torn off because a rock was going to fly and whack me in the face at 200 miles per hour, and that the flesh on my left arm and my left forearm and my hand was going to be sandblasted off and skeletonized. And she said that pieces of my body were going to be, the other pieces of my body were going to be shredded up and thrown and blown away by the high winds out into the Atlantic Ocean and washed up on the coastal shores of North Carolina and Virginia. She then said that my body was going to be found days afterwards, and she said that they were going to find me in a pile of debarked trees and that I was going to be rotting, and then I was going to be buried in a Carolina cemetery as a John Doe. It's a pretty fucked up thing to tell someone, but that's what she said. And my autism causes me to have like a very morbid curiosity about some stuff. I did not see exactly what she saw at all. I always been curious of exactly what she saw, and I wanted to see exactly what her vision was. And I thought that one day I would, or she would be able to show it to me somehow, but she wasn't able to do that. This was all based on what she was describing to me. So I wanted to know what I looked like after I was killed by that tornado, what I looked like when they found my body in the pile of trees. And this is going to sound really twisted, but back when I was living in my apartment in Wisconsin, I remember one day I was standing up in the bathroom and looking at the mirror, looking at myself in the mirror, because she said that when I was out in the forest, she said she saw me with a red pointy hat on my head, which was my bandana, and she said I was wearing no shirt and red shorts and everything. I was trying to imagine all those injuries she described to me, and I was trying to imagine what I would look like after I was killed by the tornado, and after they found my body in the forest days later. One thing I know about human decomposition, because she said that I was going to be decomposed when I was out in the forest, is that usually this is going to sound kind of creepy, but when someone's dead and they're decomposing, the body will change colors and it'll bloat up because there's gases building up underneath the flesh. But the thing is, my body was going to be severely mutilated and ripped apart by this tornado, so there would be openings everywhere, because she said that my upper and my lower jaw and my nose were going to be torn off. And she said that one of my arms are going to be torn off too. Right when she described that, I immediately thought of The Walking Dead, and I immediately thought of the walkers that Michonne has tied to her that follow her around everywhere. They're called her walker pets. That's what people call them and everything. I tried Googling pictures of people who were killed by tornadoes to see what they looked like after a tornado killed them. I didn't really find that many pictures. I found a couple, but there was one picture that I found of one tornado victim that stood out to me, and this was a picture of a young boy who was killed by a tornado. I don't know how old he is. I don't know how old he was. I don't know where it happened at, and I don't know when it happened at. But this was right away. I knew that he was killed by a tornado, and the scary thing is he actually resembles me also, and I'm going to show you guys that right now. Here it is. Alright, that's him, and that's a picture of me on the other side of the screen. That picture, I remember when I first saw that picture, and it gave me nightmares for a while after I saw it. It wasn't that I was afraid of the boy in the picture, it was just that I was thinking about what he went through when he died, and how terrifying that was, and what was going on, and I was thinking, obviously, the reason why he died is because he couldn't get to safety in time when the tornado was coming in. And it's just really terrifying, because my imagination and my mind just goes wild when I saw that picture, and I was just thinking of all the horrible stuff that happened to him. And, after a while, the picture stopped scaring me, and after a while, I actually thought it was really sad and really tragic what happened to him. And I felt really sorry for him, too. I found that picture when I Googled tornado victim, but there was another thing I found when I Googled tornado victim too, and there's no pictures of this girl after she died, and I don't want to see any pictures of her after she died. But I only found pictures of her when she was alive. Her name was Christina Nicole Heichelbach, or I don't know how to pronounce her name, but I'll add her name to the video so you guys can see it. Her name was Christina, and let me show you her picture. Here's her picture. She was a 16-year-old girl who lived in Alabama, and she was killed by a tornado in 2012. And she was born in 1995, which is the same year that I was born, and she died in 2012, which is the same year that my uncle Romario died. So right away I felt a connection to her and everything. And what happened was, the tornado happened late at night. It was a nocturnal tornado, and those tornadoes are always really dangerous because you can't see these tornadoes because they happen so late at night, and most people are asleep. They don't have time to react and take cover, which is exactly what happened to her. Her family was sleeping in the house, and the sirens went off when the tornado started happening, but her family was asleep, and they weren't woken up by the sirens. But later on, they heard the tornado coming, and by the time they woke up, the tornado was right upon them and tearing their house apart right when they woke up. And what happened was, after the tornado passed through, and what I read online is when a tornado is coming, it sounds like a freight train. After the tornado passed through, they found her body. She was blown away, far away from the house, and they said that they found her on her mattress. She was still laying on her mattress when they found her. The person who found her said that she looked like she was sleeping, but he knew that she was gone. And again, my morbid curiosity got the best of me again, and I was wondering. I didn't really wonder this as much. I didn't think about this nearly as much as how I was trying to imagine myself and what I would look like after I was killed by a violent tornado. But I was really curious and wondering what made him so sure that she was gone when he found her laying on the mattress, because he said that it looked like she was sleeping, but she was really dead, and he knew that she was dead. And I was trying to think what made him so sure of that, but after a short while, I eventually thought about it some more, and I thought, I really don't want to know what... I really don't want to know what made him know that she was gone. And I felt really sorry for Christina. And another thing is, how I was going to get to the forest in North Carolina. I was worried about becoming homeless because my adoptive parents said that, back when I was living in Wisconsin, my adoptive parents said that after my apartment lease expires, that they're not going to help me anymore and they're just going to have me become homeless. And if I became homeless, I would have no way to get my insulin, which would lead to my death. And I didn't want to die in Wisconsin because I hated Wisconsin. And I was posting about that online, and a guy found my postings online, and he told me that he felt really sorry for me, and he understood that I didn't want to die in Wisconsin, so he said that he was going to leave me out in a forest in North Carolina instead. And I never told that to anyone. No one knew that at all, because back then I did not tell that to anyone. I kept that a secret. But the psychic knew that I was going to North Carolina because she saw me being dropped off in a silver van. This man drove a silver van, and she said she saw a welcome to North Carolina sign, and that's where he was going to leave me. And I never told that to anyone, and that's why I believed the psychic, because no one knew about that. Absolutely no one did, because I never told that to anyone. The thing is, I actually did meet this man in person, and I didn't tell him where I lived, but we met at a baseball field because that's where we met at. He picked me up from a baseball field in April 2017 because me and my adoptive parents got into an argument, and me and him were friends. We were talking on the phone with each other, and I told him that I got into an argument with my adoptive parents, and that I didn't want to stay in the apartment anymore, and that I wanted to get away for a while. And he knew that I loved to be taken on long road trips, and I didn't really talk about this much, but I'll have a link to the video I did back in Wisconsin of me at the baseball field where I met him in person at. In April 2017, me and him got together. He picked me up from the baseball field, and he took me on a road trip to Alabama. We rode down Interstate 65, and partway through Alabama, we stayed, he took me down there to meet his parents. They lived out in the middle of nowhere, and they had this ranch with cows and everything, and I stayed in their guest bedroom, and we were only there for like 2 days, 2 nights, that's all it was, and they were really nice, though. We even passed the Waverly Hills Sanitarium. I'm not sure if you guys all remember, but I posted a video of me at the Waverly Hills Sanitarium. I didn't really get very close to it, but I'll have a link to that in the pinned comments. No one was asking me how I got there, because I didn't get there by myself. I definitely didn't get there by myself. This man took me there because Louisville, Kentucky is also along Interstate 65. But my point is, the whole entire time we were down in Alabama, I was thinking of Christina over and over again, and I kept thinking of that picture of her because she lived in Alabama and she died in Alabama. I kept thinking of that first picture I saw of her wearing the white top and her smiling and looking away from the camera. And she seemed like a very happy person, and it wasn't that I was disturbed with thinking about her the whole entire time or that it had any negative effect on me, but it was very haunting. And this was also the last time I saw him again, the guy who was going to leave me in the forest in North Carolina, because we stopped talking after I told him that my adoptive parents were sending me down south to live with their relatives. That's when I didn't really hear from him again, because he was glad that he didn't have to leave me in the forest then. He dropped me off at the baseball field after we came back, and he knew what the psychic had told me, because I told it all to him, that the psychic said that she saw me getting left in the forest in North Carolina. She said I was going to be alive in the forest for 4 whole days without food, water, and insulin, but then on the last day the tornado starts, and he wasn't really happy about that. He was really sad, and he felt really bad, but he already knew that I would have died anyway, because I would have been on the streets homeless, and I didn't want to die in Wisconsin, so he was nice enough to try to get me out of Wisconsin before I died, so I wouldn't have to die there at all. And he was saying that he really hopes that he doesn't have to leave me out in the forest, because he told me that he really doesn't want to do that, but he says that it would be even more cruel to just leave me alone in Wisconsin and have me die in Wisconsin when I don't want to die there at all. So he was nice enough to at least consider doing that. I told him that the whole entire time we were on the road trip to Alabama that I was thinking of Christina, the girl who died in the tornado in Alabama. And before I got out of the car and before I went home, I pulled out my cell phone and I typed in her name on Google search, and I showed him the picture of her, and I showed him I kept thinking of that picture of her over and over again. And he thought it was really sad, and he told me that she was really pretty, and she was really pretty, and it's really sad what happened to her, and I feel sorry for her. And I feel sorry for all of them, like William Norton, and all the people who died in Bangladesh, and the people who died in the tri-state tornado of 1925. Tornadoes, they are interesting, and it's interesting learning about them, it's interesting seeing them and seeing where they hit, but overall, they're really sad. and really messed up. And they seem like some scary, magical legend that's not supposed to exist at all. Like, what the heck is this? This is something out of a nightmare. This is something out of some really creepy, fucked up fantasy story. But here it is, and it's real, and they do happen. And that's really the scary part about them, really. That's really what freaks me out most about them. But they are real, and that is how it is. And my Uncle Mario told me the legend of the dead man walking, and it really creeps me out that the documentary I found also mentioned that, because the only person I heard it from was my Uncle Mario. But also the psychic told me that I would see the dead man walking, which is the Native American legend that if you see the dead man walking in a tornado, you are about to die. And that's caused by the multiple vortex of the tornado. That's what gave it the illusion of someone walking in the tornado. And it's terrifying, really. But that's basically it for this episode of Joe Winko Talk. So please comment and share your thoughts. What did you think of everything I talked about in this episode of Joe Winko Talk? Just make sure to let me know and be specific so I can make sure you guys listen to everything I said, because that's the whole point of my YouTube channel, to get my story out there and share my thoughts with everyone. So don't forget to like, don't forget to comment, and don't forget to subscribe, and don't forget to like me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Tumblr. So that's it. Peace out, people.